when I talk about AI, um, we frequently just throw around the term AI. And the fact of the matter is that we're not at a point yet where we as a civilization and technologies have actually created full uh, artificial intelligence. Where we are right now is at the infancy of uh, massive computing power, being able to cycle through tremendous amounts of information and data, all of the texts, all of the words ever spoken and recorded in human history, and able to generate through generative pre-trained transformers, which is what we now refer to as GPTs. Um, and we have not yet hit the point of general AI, which is where we have self-aware, self-cognizant, general, non-task specific intelligence that is able to grow. We, by best estimates, are getting close. And depending on who you listen to, anywhere from 6 months from now, which has been said for a long time. But my guess is we're probably 2 to 3 years out from general AI itself. Regardless of all those distinctions, and I promise that's hopefully the most nerdy thing I have to say about all of this, but it's important, I think, for everybody to just take a deep breath around this topic. There's so much information, disinformation, and things that people assume that they know or don't know, et cetera. Lots of people, especially entrepreneurs, declaring they have all the answers and they're going to transform X, Y, or Z with AI, and somehow we're supposed to believe that. That is no different than all of the other technological advances we have seen in human history. This is a pattern that we've done over time and time and time again. And the question that I want to raise and that I want to discuss is, if AI is a tool, and it's a tool that has the ability to probably more drastically, as a percentage affect a larger percentage of our society than almost any other technological advance in the past, which is something for me to say is actually a big statement. And if AI is a tool, and like all tools, it's how we use it determines, if a hammer is used to transform and fix and repair, or if it's used as a weapon and we hit each other over the head with it. And it is a neutral technology in that way, like all other technologies that we have. And it has some comparisons to other types of technologies that we've developed in the past that I think are worth looking back at history and thinking about how did we as society react or not, and then how will we potentially react or not and adapt ourselves and the technology itself. But I'm not here as a cheerleader for AI. AI is basically, in the early 1990s, I created one of the first e-commerce companies. I still say the word e-commerce, which dates me. In 1995, I think, we launched Green Marketplace, and that basically took the natural products industry online. And that was a time when people were talking about, are you an e-commerce company or are you a brick and mortar company? And now it's just in the water, right? Effectively. Every business, if you don't have an e-commerce strategy, if you're not looking at how you're selling online and dealing with people in person and all, the interchange of all of the factors of ways that people interact, you're kind of not doing business right. And you're not doing yourself a service, nor your customers. And so AI is a tool. It's a utility effectively and can be a utility, but it's a pretty dangerous one, right? It's one where the future scenarios, which hopefully everyone is a fan of sci-fi as I am, and we've seen both the positives and negatives, imaginations of Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov and all these authors that really looked at what it could mean for us as a society in the future. So it's happening. And, I'm here to say this, like we're in it. It's unavoidable. And just like winner takes all capitalism is anathema to many of the values that we in this community hold, where we think about mutualism and we think about values and we think about how to extend the benefits of what we do to people and planet and profit, we absolutely need to think about and to bring to the table that thought process, the data and information that we have, and most importantly, our values. Because if we're able to, we possibly have the ability to hack this system that is currently being created and controlled by 6 people on the planet right now, for the benefit of people and planet, and yes, profit too. And I think the for-profit community is actually uniquely positioned right now to take advantage of this, and to actually affect that kind of change in the world that we need to see happen. Because I don't believe that policy and laws and all the rest are going to actually in any way contain or control the evolution of AI. Profitability, benefit for all, mutual beneficial outcomes, those are going to be the actions that are going to be judged as being worthy of wider adoption across society. And I think that that's something we really need to think about. So I think the first movers in our space are going to be the companies that build profitable, first moving companies, early companies in here that demonstrate that what can be achieved will benefit across all areas of interest to broader society. And if we are able to actually demonstrate that and not make the same mistakes that we have in the past when dealing with existential crises, like climate change, for example, that we are actually able to show and demonstrate the value that using this technology actually can bring. Okay, so all of that is very optimistic, right? And you know, there's a call to action there, and I very much believe it. But right now, many of us are sitting with a lot of anxiety around this tool that is being created as we speak. And I just want to address a couple of the bigger top line issues, and we can go into further questions if people want. But it's important when we look at the current state of AI. It's in its infancy. It's insanely inefficient. Inefficiency costs money and causes investors to lose money. And I believe that efficiency is actually going to, in terms of measurement around energy consumption, water consumption, climate risk, and even societal backlash, are all going to be factors that we are going to see the twig sort of bending towards addressing and dealing with those issues in fairly rapid order. We are currently, and then the other issue that has to be just addressed that worries a lot of people is the future of jobs, right? And what are people, going to do, and who's going to be affected and lose their jobs as a result of this new technology? Again, looking back at history, from the creation of the printing press to the decisions to protect the spotted owl in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, to moving from horse and buggy to cars, jobs and what people do and how they do it have radically been shifted over time. And this one is not going to be any different. In fact, the difference will be it's going to affect a lot more people. So the question is, what do we do, and what is the reality of all this? So just quickly jumping into this, most people think that data centers are the big evil here. And I'm not saying that they're not, right? But data centers consume energy and they consume water. And right now, energy usage for data centers currently is about 1.5% of all energy usage globally. That's a projection, a number that comes from the IEA. All the next numbers I'll be talking about are from the IEA. But it's projected to be at 3 to 4% of energy use globally by 2035. So as a comparison, when we look at agriculture, which is at 20 to 30% of all energy usage, transportation and other areas, buildings and buildings and maintaining buildings, all have much larger footprints and will remain unless we get more efficient at operating them at those levels. And so the other interesting aspect of this data is that the IEA, which is not an industry front group, it's not a government front group, and it's not an activist organization either. But basically, they led and others have led studies that show the ability of AI-enabled solutions can cut emissions across all industries at 5 times the rate of the emissions that data centers, that energy is being consumed at data centers themselves. And so our job, I think, as an impact community, and I'll be talking about specifics in a minute, is to make sure that the net equation stays positive, that we are actively pushing out and growing these technologies and using AI for good. Water is another massive concern. It's by far the numbers on water should be humbling to anyone who looks at, and water is used for cooling of these facilities and the servers that are running in them. So annually, one data center currently consumes the same amount of water as a golf course. That's the current sort of effective measurement. We can go through all the individual numbers, but the inefficiency is that we're currently building, because of policy and some NIMBYism that is happening, not in my backyard type stuff. We're building data centers in some of the most drought-stricken regions of the world right now. And so that is a serious problem. If all of our data centers are in Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and in Spain and Portugal and other places around the world, we have a problem, right? Maintaining the current levels of water consumption. It can't sustain itself. There is very, very good news that is not just on the horizon, but here now. Microsoft, since 2024, and once again, I'm not shilling for any company here, I promise, but Microsoft, every new facility that it has built since 2024 has been a zero water evaporation cooling system. What that means is that the water that it needs for the lifetime of the operation of that plant is injected into that plant on day one, and then it's recycled and reused throughout and recaptured in their system, effectively dropping their water usage by incredible amounts. The chips that are being developed, there's so many different technologies that are being developed to deal with the inefficiency of these facilities, that I'm not convinced that data centers right now are where we, as a business community and an investment community, should be focused in terms of our concerns. That's a controversial statement, and it may irk people, and I get it. But I think legislation and, once again, having the actual business logic of trying to spend less money and to make more money, which means using less energy, using less water, having less waste come from these things, making it cheaper to operate and more efficient to operate, is naturally going to happen. And the question is, are we helping that happen, or are we in any way hurting that from happening? So I think what we need to focus on, and I won't say if I'm starting, I am, and I have been. I advise entrepreneurs and investors all over the world on helping focus their efforts, their entrepreneurial efforts, in the best, most advantageous ways to have positive impact in the world. And these are the areas that I am focused on right now, specifically efficiency in electricity grids and power generation. Basically, AI has the ability, when applied across a power grid, to cut 30 to 50% of grid outages in almost any environment in which it's deployed. That saves, on average, $110 billion for the operation of these grids, and frees up 175 gigawatts of transmission capacity that could be then used for other purposes. Supply chains and supply chain efficiency account for 50% currently of global emissions. Food alone is 25% of global emissions. Overproduction, accurately measuring Scope 3 emissions, and many other issues related to supply chains and making them more efficient and more optimized will help lead to outcomes that we want to see across not just energy or climate, but in stabilizing food systems, economic prosperity for more, and which we'll talk about in a minute. And basically, it's been proven that usage of AI is very, very effective in those environments. Buildings and focusing on the built environment and basically they consume currently buildings globally consume 32% of electricity and produce 34% of all global CO2 emitted by humanity. So the need there is better systems from controlling energy management, heating and cooling, and how and when buildings are used and all the rest. Transportation is the next area that I think is huge, which transportation accounts for 15% of global emissions. We need to see route optimization, predictive logistics, alternative means of powering transportation, et cetera. Generally, I'm not saying up front, but it certainly is the case, moving away from a fossil fuel-based powering of all this stuff to non-fossil fuel-based and non-emitting types of energy or lower emitting amounts of energy are helpful. And AI has the ability to speed up testing and speed up our ability to get there. It has the ability to. You all and we are going to have to do this and actually be the ones that are the first movers in this space if we're going to deal with this. So there are many, and I'm looking at time and I want to get to questions, so I'm going to stop talking in a second. There are many, many positive examples out there in the world of projects that are doing and using AI right now to address many of the issues I just talked about. I'm involved, as Lori mentioned, in a company called Reseed, and we are actually using AI to help smallholder farmers get access to data about their land and provide data and certification for Scope 3 reductions and in emissions, and also water usage and lots of other factors that are needed on a global scale to prove that smallholder farmers in many, many industries are actually a more efficient source of goods. Another company that I just want to mention that I also work with and was featured in the article that Lori mentioned is a company called Sandgrove, which I normally don't do early stage pro bono work with entrepreneurs, but when Tatiana, who's the CEO and founder of that company, told me about a statistic which blew my mind, right? And it gets to this inefficiency question. There is every year $500 billion of unsold inventory in the fashion industry. And basically, if you're able to not know to not produce, or which products you should produce and which products you shouldn't produce, by understanding and using predictive analytics and user feedback and consumer feedback to be able to calculate how to get the most efficient products to market that the most people will buy, you can actually take a huge amount of emissions out of the equation just by not producing certain products. To the companies that are producing those products, this is waste. This is a loss of profit. This is an inefficiency that exists in their system that they currently factor in, but they could be making so much more money if they had the ability to predict what it is, what fashion, for example, people actually want. And that's a company, Sandgrove, that is doing that right now, and I'm a big fan of. Look, we are at this time in history where a global community has assembled itself over the past. I think the Social Venture Network is one of the oldest organizations in this space. It's been around for almost 40 years and helped launch almost all of the social enterprise and social impact investing work that's happened in the world. And I know that's a big claim, but trust me, we can back it up. There is a global community of people who care, that have self-identified, that have started to connect with each other and are starting to work on these issues. What we need is to prove that there is a false choice that's being put to us, generally in business, between returns and values. And your capital, your networks, your creativity and values are exactly what this moment needs right now. And I think I'll leave it there. But my goal here is that we need to harness and figure out how to harness this technology to shift the benefit of it and its use for people, planet, and your bottom line and our bottom line as a planet, a society, the window is open. It may not stay open very long. If the 6 major individual people who are controlling the evolution of the baseline of generative AI right now continue to control the entire narrative and lead everything, we're going down the path of big tobacco, of big oil, and basically, but there is a moment that we're in right now, and we need boldness. We need boldness mostly from capital providers, quite frankly, who need to get off their ass and actually start investing directly into potential solutions that make sense. And we need to stop admiring and fawning over, celebrities in the space. We need to stop panicking and freaking out about all this and hoping that others solve the problems. We all need to work together on this to build the answers. And so I'm hoping that, talks like this, I do a lot of work, generally working, as I said, with entrepreneurs and investors, helping them navigate these spaces and think about what's next. And if I can help you do that, or I can refer you to others that can help you do that, please let me know. I want to help you in navigating this transition, and I want to have a conversation. So let's start the conversation.